Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it anywhere and everywhere. You can even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today.
Then you can go ahead and distribute your podcast to Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take the conversation with your fans to the next level, Q&A polls are the best way to get them talking.
With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions.
And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. We've been using Spotify for Podcasters, and we highly recommend you give it a try. Download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters and get started.
You guys, welcome back to That's So Fringy podcast. We're so glad that you have made it back for another Sunday Fringe Day. That's right, we're talking with From the Shadows today. We're getting a little paranormal on you, if you like that sort of thing. I know Kristen does, as you'll hear. We had a good time talking with Shane. I do apologize in advance for the audio quality. It is not up to my regular standards, and it is giving me anxiety, I'll be honest, to release this footage, or audio, I should say, rather. And I must just warn you, it's not as good as I would like it to be, but the content, rather, is very good. We are so thankful that Shane was able to spend the time to talk with us. They've got a great podcast, From the Shadows. If you haven't listened to that, we encourage you to do so. And they're talking about all kinds of things like Bigfoot, the Dog Man, Mothman, any of these things, ghosts, hauntings. If these things interest you, or you want to dig into those things a little bit more, their podcast is one to go to. So with that, we had a great time talking with him, and we hope that you enjoy it too. Please do your best to put the audio quality out of your mind, as I'm trying to do. We were out of town. We had a spring break little trip that we went on, and so the Wi-Fi in the hotel wasn't working correctly, so we had to do everything from our phones, and it was just a nightmare. But we ended up capturing everything that we wanted to capture. So if you can suffer through the audio quality, we hope that you will enjoy the content. So with that, we're going to jump into this episode, and but please, before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Sharing this content is what we want to do to help promote all of not only our That's So Fringy podcast, but we want to encourage you to follow all of these other podcasts that we're promoting, because these people have great content. There's a lot of truth out there, and we know that you can't just get it all from one place. As much as we try to bring you a full scope of information, there are many others that have been doing this for much longer than we. So check out their podcasts as well if you're looking for something else to consume. So All right, I think that's it, guys. We're glad you're listening. We're seeing the numbers go up. We're liking the communication back and forth. We're getting your messages, and we're responding as fast as we can. So keep them coming. And we just are really, really enjoying this journey that we're on, and hopefully you're enjoying it too. So, all right, you guys, let's get fringy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to That's So Fringy podcast. I'm Rick.
And I'm Kristen.
And we're here today with Shane from the Shadows podcast. And we wanted to just get to know him a little bit more, get to know what they've got going on over there at From the Shadows. And, it's a great podcast. We've been listening to it, bud, and we're just really enjoying the content that you guys are putting out, and just really jealous that you got into it and thought about it first. That's what I'm really getting at.
Rick and Kristen, it's my pleasure to join you guys on That's So Fringy, which is kind of a cool name. Which, although if my stepdaughter heard it and knew that I was on, she might say it should be titled That's So Cringy. Because I think
that's what we started with.
Yeah, but I might just have to say, I think you guys are totally lying that you're listening to our content and then still ask me to be on, because I think you guys should know better. No
way. You're going to be our introduction to the paranormal stuff, which is really what I'm mostly interested in. The weird stuff, like Rick's got the Bible brain, and I have the weird paranormal Bigfoot Dogman brain.
Well, you've come to the right place. I'm not saying it's the best place, but it's the right place to discuss that. And we've been doing it for quite a while. I don't know. We're going on 2.5, 3 years. Time has just flown by, So, but there never seems to be an end to people we can talk to that have cool paranormal experiences, So I mean, what is it that you got? What is it that you guys want me to talk about first? Because I'll gladly. I mean, I can tell you how we got started, or
let's hear that. Let's hear how you got started, and what's your what was the thing that really was like, you know what, I got to talk about this to the whole world.
Well, so my sometimes co-host, we call him the Judge. Okay. His name is Shane also, so we call him the Judge. But that's also because he is a judge here where we live in Ohio, in north central Ohio. And so our origin story kind of goes back to when we were in high school. And you guys look way young, so I'm way older than you guys. So we're talking we were in high school in the 80s. Okay. So, no technology, to speak of, unless a rotary dial phone is considered a cordless phone would have been considered technology back then. Yeah. But back then when we were in high school, the Judge, he had an experience that a group of us guys, we all played high school basketball together. We remember the next night after he had this experience, and it happened while he was out jogging, training for his cross country season was coming up, and he was going to run in a local festival's 5K, and he was out on a country road where we grew up, where we still live. Actually, we all still live around here, and something was in the field pacing him. It was in a cornfield, and it was an August night, and it was pacing him about 3 or 4 rows in, and it did it for almost a mile, the last mile before as he's running home. Okay.
Yeah.
And the next night, all of us guys got together and we were playing like cards, playing poker. And he's telling us this story, and he's telling us like, what do you guys think this was? It was really crazy. It was really weird. I got, I didn't, do you think it was a deer? Do you think it was, he did not tell us the whole story, we found out. Okay. At the time, he told us what he felt he could tell us without us basically calling him crazy and, what high school guys do to each other. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
And so, but there's 3 or 4 of us that vividly remember him talking about this the next night and not knowing what it was. So, fast forward to, 3 or 4 years ago, and the judge has always been one of those guys. He grew up in a haunted house. Okay. The house was ridiculously haunted. We all knew it. Stuff happened. And stuff happened then as he got older, and we had kids. We had kids at the same time. And he's told a story on air about an experience with a paranormal, it was like ghost, okay, that was interacting with his child, okay, which is a crazy story, and he's better to tell that. But anyway, he calls me up. So my day job, he's a judge, I'm a mailman, okay, so I'm out on the mail route, and he calls me and he goes, I figured it out. Like, what do you mean you figured it out? It's kind of an open-ended question. Yeah. And he says, I know what I saw that night. I'm like, so I'm immediately, we've been friends for 40 some years. I'm like, you mean the night on Temple Road there on the car? And he goes, yeah. He goes, it was a dog man. And I said, whoa, wait a sec. Because now, in this present day, we all kind of knew, you know what a dog man is. You've heard of it. Okay. At least you have some frame of reference as to what it is. But he had never told us that he actually saw something. Okay. And he kind of finally copped to it to me. He's like, okay. He goes, I never told you guys, but he goes, when I, took a right at the end of the road and sprinted to, because the story is he sprinted towards our buddy's house. He would have had to take a left to go to his house, or right to go to our buddy's house. And he was figuring if he took a left, he was going to intersect whatever was coming out of the cornfield.
That makes sense.
And so, and if you hear him tell the story, which really, he does a good job of telling it because he's had a lot of time to think about it so he's kind of really broke it down to like what he was thinking. And of course, I mean, he's a very smart, articulate guy. He's a judge. Okay.
Yeah.
He said, as he took off our buddy's house, he turned back because he was crossing at that, and it's still a pretty busy 2-lane state route. So he turned back and he saw what he his only frame of reference was the Egyptian god Anubis stepping out of the cornfield and like looking at him. Okay. And he just took off, went and dove in our buddy's pool, thinking this thing was going to come after him. He dove in the pool and kind of, he tells the whole story. And then when he, figured out the thing wasn't after him, the kicker of the story is he goes running in to our buddy's house. This is late. And our buddy's sitting there watching the Playboy channel and thinks it's his mom and dad coming home and like jumps. He's like, what's going on? So when he first told me the story, that, he figured out what it was, and he figured it out because he had been searching, he was able to buy books, and he had gotten a book on Dogman, The Beast of Bray Road by Linda Gottfried. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was reading it, and that kind of like, oh my God, this is what this is what I saw. And of course, my first thing was, because the next night where we were playing cards was literally only like a half mile, 2 miles down the road. I said, so dude, you saw something that looked like the Egyptian god Anubis on Tula and let us play cards out in our buddy's garage? Like, really?
And then you went and took a swim? Like, what are you doing?
It's like you, like, so, and so what happened was then he talked to me about it, and the other thing is his brother is the other judge. He's municipal court. His older brother's common pleas, and so he asked me, and he told his brother, he's like, look, this is what I figured. His brother goes, okay, but you're not going to say anything. And he goes, no, I have to tell this story. His brother goes, you are nuts. You are an elected official. You got to get reelected every 6 years. You can't have people thinking you're crazy. And he's like, look, he goes, I now know what I saw. And he goes, it's been 30 years. And as an elected official, I think it lends some credibility to me going and telling the story. And if it helps anybody feel better about their experience, I'm willing to put that out there and take the chance. And he went on, I think he went on Shannon LaGros show, he went on another show, and he told the story. And so that just started a discussion between us, like at that point I had never listened to a podcast. And I'm like, so to our ignorance, we're like, man, we like talking about this stuff. It'd be really cool to talk to other people. Let's start a podcast. We didn't have a clue. We don't know anything about starting a podcast. And we got introduced to a guy named Jason who had done a podcast, and through some movie work I had done, I got introduced to him, and he's like, yeah, I like the paranormal stuff, and I'll come do it. And so we kind of just did it and got some guests. Luckily, I don't, at first we had some local people that had some ghost stories that we knew and were interested, and they came on. But at first we kind of, we talked to some of the famous people in the field. Mm-hmm. We had like Ken Gerhardt on, Nick Redfern, the guys. We had Linda Gottfried on, and which was huge because we got to talk to her, and she then changed everything the judge thought about Dogman. Even which led us to more discoveries in our area there, that there were Indian burial mounds on these two roads where we had gone to elementary school. We had lived in this area their whole life. We didn't know there were Indian burial mounds there. Mm-hmm. Okay, they were just back in farmers' fields, and so it kind of really opened our eyes. Well, so as we kept going, then by hook or crook, I don't know, people started like listening to us, and then the judge went on and told a story to Wes on Sasquatch Chronicles, and it just, we kind of like really got big as far as listenership for what we were expecting. Mm-hmm. And it opened it up to people then coming forward with their stories, which is really what we love. We love to talk to people, and get and have them. It's a real special feeling when somebody hasn't shared a story because they think somebody's going to make fun of them, which they do. People even today make fun of, and we had a lady who had a dog, because the judge, he was kind of he's like, his whole thing is what he saw did not make sense to him. Okay, it wasn't like he automatically thought, well, maybe that's a werewolf, because it didn't look like what Hollywood's version of werewolf was.
Yeah.
Okay. And all he could think of was the Egyptian god Anubis, but it did not make sense. No, and we didn't know that at the same time in Wisconsin, just about, Linda Gottfried was discovering, those incidences that were going on. And because, like I said, again, people that didn't live in the 70s and 80s don't understand how really isolated and stuff people were when it came to sharing that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, and you couldn't just pull up your phone and go to Google and type in, what does Dogman look like? You just didn't have access to that kind of stuff. So I imagine that would have been but I think people seek out these podcasts because they have stuff. They've seen stuff, and now they're like, okay, I wasn't crazy. I mean, maybe you were. I don't know, but.
See, I knew she couldn't relate to growing up in the 80s, right? She thinks this.
She's too young. She doesn't know.
That's not true.
But there was never, so like the only show, and it's funny when we do talk to people from our generation, they go back to In Search Of. Like that was the one show we ever saw anything paranormal, and and we just used to consume everything. Like even when we were kids, we loved that stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you would have told the second grade me, who got every Bigfoot, ghost book, Bermuda Triangle book, if you were going to tell me I remember reading the first time about Oak Island. And if you tell me that I just watched the last episode of that was just on there. It's like, if you would have told me that I could be watching a show about them trying to find this treasure at Oak Island, I'm like, whatever, and but we just consumed that stuff because it was so fascinating. And you didn't think it was, like you only thought Bigfoot was Pacific Northwest or the Yeti. And what we have come to find out is I've become pretty good friends with Seth Breedlove and those guys from Small Town Monsters. And they did a really great documentary on the Minerva monster, which was a Bigfoot story from the late 70s, like an hour and a half from here in Ohio. That we never knew about, because if it wasn't in your newspaper or it wasn't on the news, and then they probably really wouldn't have taken it very seriously, you'd had no idea that there was a Bigfoot. And like you said, you can't, I can pull up Google, I can see what the eastern part of Ohio looks like, where Salt Fork and Clear Fork and all those, how wooded it is, and you're like, oh, yeah, that kind of looks like the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Like there could be a Bigfoot running around there.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for Bigfoot to hide in this nation, and I think when people are like, Bigfoot doesn't exist, or the Dogman doesn't exist, it's like, have you been outside in some of these areas? I mean, they are so densely wooded that you can't even get in there. It's you would have to be a very skilled survivalist hiker to get into some of these places.
Yeah, and not only to get in there, but then to find something that doesn't want to be found.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And we talk, and I mean, some of the eyewitnesses that I have spoken to, there was one guy, for instance, that he got a hold of. I don't even know how to get. I mean, of course, you can figure out how to get a hold of me, but he got a hold of me, and there is it's called Plum Creek or something. I can't remember the name, but it's a NASA facility. That is between where I live here and have you guys heard of Cedar Point?
Yep.
It's the huge amusement park. Okay. So Plum Brook is the name of this place. And that's where they have this it's where the astronauts went to experience weightlessness in the beginning. It was a big NASA testing facility that, of course, when it was built, was out in the middle of nowhere along this highway. And this guy lived as a kid near this facility. And he called me up and he's telling me the story from when he was a kid, that he had only ever told one person, And it happened in the 70s, and he was out riding on his dirt bike, and he was, basically he described it as coming across a caveman. Okay. And he was telling me the story like it happened the night before.
Wow.
Like the fear and the terror in his voice, and just the fact that he wanted to talk to somebody that would listen to him and be empathetic to what he was going through. And when he gets done, he's telling me a story, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a great episode. I go, so do you want to come on the show? And he's like, oh no, I don't want to go on the show. I just wanted to talk to somebody about it. And I'm like, oh. but then he ended up coming on the show like a couple weeks later, because we had a cancellation, and I'm like, hey man, I got a cancel. And he's like, all right, I'll come on. Because what really had bothered him all these years was he wanted to know if somebody else had experienced the same thing. And that's kind of what we get is people tell their stories because for a couple reasons. Is they want to get it off their chest and it makes them feel better, or they're curious to see if somebody else in the same area has had a similar experience. Because let's face it, he didn't go report that to the BFRO. It didn't even exist then. Okay. So that sighting he had, as far as anybody's concerned, didn't happen. It's not, now it's cataloged, but if somebody doesn't come across that particular episode on our podcast, then they still don't know about it, And so we try, and there's some really good stories. I've talked to people, and they're just still reluctant to come on, and it's like, but it's great that people that they feel comfortable enough with you, and they feel safe enough with you to tell you their story.
Yeah, it's really becoming more of a, people are seeing stuff on TV. There's lots of podcasts that are talking about paranormal. You're hearing stories from lots of different people, and I think it's letting other people, as you were kind of alluding to, have the ability to say, you know what, I'm not a weirdo. I'm actually a pretty normal person, and I'm having a normal experience that a lot of other people have actually had. And if we could start believing these people, then maybe we could actually make some headway in what everybody's seeing. But, nobody wants to talk about it. And from what we learn, from science with, how people relate to trauma and stuff like that, like you were saying, it was like it just happened the night before. It's because it's like imprinted in his mind. When you see something like that, it basically gets seared to your brain, and you can relive it, because it is almost like a PTSD or one of those things where you're remembering it all the time. And those people might even have, long-term trauma and things like that from that one incident when they were a kid. And because I know a lot of guys with PTSD, and they have this thing where it's like once a year on the anniversary of that thing, they have a lot of anxiety and a lot of stuff going on. And it makes me wonder if a lot of these people have that, like around that same time, kind of like a Halloween type time where people are feel really kind of spooky around that time. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because, and this is just kind of something that we, from talking to people and exploring some things, is I think it's lost on some people how connected everybody really is. Okay. We're all made out of energy. We're all like, we're vibrating on different, some we're on different planes as far as like in our own existence here, we're vibrating at different levels. But when you start getting a bunch of people on the same wavelength, just like you said, at Halloween, it's what happens at Halloween. Everybody's amped up. You're some people are wanting to get scared. Some people love to get scared. Some people just get spooky. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot too, like like, I think that there's a lot to that. Like as a collective, you can kind of feed off of stuff. Now, that's totally different than I just had a documentary filmmaker last week. He wants to come on the show because he claims he's a skeptic. Okay, and he makes documentaries about Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff, and he's telling me how that he just can't buy Bigfoot, can't buy it. That everything like Bigfoot, Dogman, it's all like a group hallucination. It's a psychedelic thing. It's like there's no evidence. People just don't know what they're seeing. And I'm thinking, I'm not buying that at all. I don't believe in I believe that you and I can be in the same place and experience something together, and it's not going to be, you're not reading my thoughts, I'm not reading your thoughts. We're going to have that experience together, but we're still going to see it a little bit differently. And he's saying that you and I are going to be at the same place, and we're going to see the same thing.
Sure, yeah.
Because even if I told the guy, I said, I'm as sober as a person you're ever going to meet. I go, there's no psychedelic anything coming from me. Okay. And he goes, well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm like, well, then what are you saying? And he couldn't really answer. So he's one of those people that refuses, unless you bring hardcore photographic or video evidence, that he's not going to believe it. And the problem is that it does not matter what people present as evidence when it comes to that sort of thing, is there's always going to be people that are going to pick it apart. They're going to say it's not true, it's fabricated. Even if you brought a body of a Bigfoot, okay, people, and you watch them open the thing up on the autopsy table, there's still going to be people are going to say it's fake, it's this, it's that, and and that's what scares people from coming forward. Is all I got's a story. Who's going to believe me? Well, I'd like to tell them it doesn't matter. People that don't believe are not going to believe no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are usually the people that get a smack in the face one way that changes their, that somehow changes their belief system. And, and it'd be nice if everybody could have that happen, but I don't think it's going to. But, I think the most important thing is listening to people, because they have experienced something. Now, do I know that everything everybody's experienced is a Bigfoot or a ghost or a UFO or whatever? I don't know that. All I can do is listen to people, encourage them to tell their story, and try to help them through whatever questions they have. I'm not an expert on anything, but I can talk through some stuff with them and help them answer, try to answer some questions that they might have. And at the end of the day, as long as they feel better, they're still not maybe any closer to knowing what they saw. But there's some people that are pretty,
these
talk to people
are seeing things, they're genuine people. Yeah. It's not like you're interviewing whack jobs. It's not like you're going to the corner and some dude's, pushing a cart, talking to himself, and you're going up and being like, hey, tell me about Bigfoot. That's not what's happening. These are like upstanding citizens. They're going to work every day. They're raising children. They're paying their bills. These are good, solid people, and that's what they need. Somebody to listen to them. And that's really what we all need. We all need to just be heard and have somebody feel like they're listening to you, and you're actually being, I was telling my kids this. I get so tired of listening to, how kids talk to each other these days, and how everybody is just like tearing each other down. Like everything is like everybody's talking shit. Everybody, all the time. It's constant. And you're just like, dude, how are you guys are friends, right? And they're like, yeah, we're friends. And I'm just like, bro, you guys are talking to each other right now. I would have looked you a while ago. But that's the thing is we kind of have a culture where it's actually more acceptable to just make fun of you than it is to just listen to you and say, you know what, I'm just going to see what this guy has to say. And with Kristen and I, kind of the way that we see the world is I'm going to listen to and give people the benefit of the doubt as much as I can. And that is how I'm going to gather enough evidence so that I can then make a decision for myself. But the minute that you just shut somebody down, you've lost the opportunity to collect evidence. And that's terrible.
Absolutely. And you made a great point. And we talk, because another part of our show is in the middle of the week, we do a humorous type show. Okay. And we call it the midweek howl because the guy that is in there we can't use his real name. He's a former highway patrolman, sheriff's deputy, air marshal, and Homeland Security guy. And it started out, and he's one of the funniest storytellers.
Dude, I don't mean to cut you off, but I need to up my game with my friends. You're telling me you've got several judges as your friend, and this dude's like an air marshal. I'm thinking about my friends. Like, hold on a second.
Listen, look, I told you I'm way older than you. It takes a while to cycle to get to that point. Point.
All right, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay. And so we don't use his. We call him the Ozark Howler. So it's like kind of a little because he's living in the Ozarks, and that's a cryptid, and so that's kind of. But we have talked many times on the show because there's people that just once, and I don't know how many fans you guys have, but once you reach a certain level, there's going to be people that are fans just so they can rip on you, okay, and say really terrible things. And so we have some people like that. And so we just address it head on. And because the point is you wouldn't say that to us if you were standing in front of us. Okay. You just wouldn't. Okay. I mean, you look like a pretty big dude. Okay. I don't think somebody's going to come up to you and, run down your podcast or something that you talked about right to your face. But people become emboldened by sitting at a keyboard and typing stuff. And and some people are really effective. We use it as a source of humor and a reason to talk about it. But yeah, and I think if you are going to take a pot shot at us, because we've had people that have taken shots at us, unnecessary shots. We've made fun of them. Yeah. Okay, they get mad then that we're making fun of them. And it's like, dude, you put yourself out there. You don't talk to me about freedom of speech. Freedom of speech means that you can say what you feel, but there are consequences to freedom of speech. If you're willing to pay those consequences or face up to them, okay, then you can say whatever you want. But there are always repercussions if you step outside the line and you're.
No, Rick always goes, well, that guy looks like he hasn't been punched in the mouth enough times.
There you go.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be saying that.
Chris Rock learned that one not that long ago.
Yeah. Well, and he, he really talks about he's not the first comedian who rubbed somebody the wrong way and they got punched in the mouth. But they know, as a comedian or as a public person, that something you say, could rub somebody the wrong way. Now, if Chris Rock was 6'5" and 275 pounds, you think Will Smith would have walked up and smacked him in the face? No. He'd been like, come on, man, quit making fun of me and my wife.
Yeah, please.
But one of my favorite episodes that we did was a guy from the military, and he was a tier 1 specialist in the military, and he had been out for 12 years, and he, like, on the air, and like here, I can't go into a lot of detail about what he did in the military, but what he told me was he was in a group of 3 guys, and their job was to go extract people who didn't want to be extracted. Okay. And they were the best group in the world as they were of doing that. So they were the most highly trained. They were the most respected. They were the most, trusted people to do this job. And he got a hold of me, and we had a conversation, and he's telling me about it, something that happened in the Southwest. I can't remember, it was New Mexico, Arizona, on government land, where they were sent out as a group to test some top secret equipment. Now, it wasn't weapons or anything, but it was, maybe like, he couldn't even tell me what it was they were testing, but I can imagine and they had an encounter with what we could only assume was a Bigfoot. Okay. And they heard it, saw it, followed it to where they thought it disappeared from. They marked it, and everything. And it was like within their camp. Okay. But they just were shook up enough. Okay. Because this thing had snuck up on them, the most highly trained people in the world. Like, he goes, the unnerving thing is this is what we were trained to do. We knew every trick in the book. This thing snuck up on us, it allowed us to see it, because it made a noise. It mimicked one of them. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And mimicked one of them, then allowed it to see it. So then they spent the rest of the night, one person watching, which they shouldn't have had to do. They're in government land, they're not in hostile territory. Mm-hmm. And so they took turns on watch, and how they had marked where this, cause they marked how high they saw it and stuff with he goes, these big plastic, we use these glow sticks that are, and he goes, so we marked it so we could go back and do some measurements and stuff. And he said the morning comes, and they'd all take turns, and they go back to the spot, which is, like I said, within their camp, basically. And the glow stick had been taken off the tree and ripped apart. Like, he goes, I don't know anybody personally with their bare hands that can rip one of these glow sticks apart.
Those things are dense.
And he goes,
plastic.
And he said, not only that, but he goes, it snuck back up on us again while we were on high alert, watching for it, knowing that there was a possibility. And it happened, when at the point where he's telling this, it happened 12 years prior. And he wasn't as shook up as the guy who saw the caveman type thing, but he was still questioning, like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was. He goes, we all have a good idea of what it was. But he goes, it has never left any of us. And his voice, like, something happened. I don't know what happened. That's a highly trained professional who we, as citizens of the United States, didn't even know what he was doing to protect our country.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to take him at his word. He's way more trained. He's way more trained than the average person out in the woods to do that. Cause I can't imagine the stuff that he has had to interact with. Okay. Good or bad on a second's notice. And to hear that guy tell the story and hear off the air what he did before he came on the air, that's the stuff that blows me away.
And to validate that almost a little more from a military background myself, you're trained, and don't get me wrong, I was never at this dude's level, but at my level, we were trained in observation, because you have to have trigger control. Mm-hmm. You can't just go in gun blazing, killing kids and women and stuff like that. You got to know. You have rules of engagement. You got to know all that stuff. And so for them to be trained observers at that level, their mission set on the backside is always a debrief, always reports, all of that stuff has to be documented. These guys are detail oriented. That's why they're at that level. And if you ever listen to any of these guys talk or tell their stories, you know that these guys are some of the most intelligent people in the world. And they're warrior poets is what they are. And so for this dude to say that, I would believe him, because what is he? Who's he trying to impress? His resume is impressive enough.
Well, there's another aspect, and I don't know if you've heard of this before, but when people do encounter a Bigfoot or some of these creatures, they have this like aura that they put out where it almost like can put people into a stupor. And I've heard people like kind of like, I can't explain it, but I was confused, or it's a different vibration that it's putting off, or I don't know what it is, but I've heard people say that. So then you're even more like, am I crazy, or did I really see something? I imagine that would be even weirder.
First off, when you see something like that, it's not supposed to be there, okay? Because you've been told by everybody it's not supposed to exist. And so kind of off the air, because I asked him on the air about, well, did you report it? And he goes, oh, no. He goes, no, all three of us agreed we can't tell our superiors anything about this because we're supposed to be sane, trust, you're only as good as your teammates, and you can't let them think that you're crazy, because he goes, we weren't crazy, we all experienced it, and it just wasn't something, because we couldn't, and so we got in this discussion off the air, and I'm like, well, what? Because I've talked to tons of military people who there's bases all over this country that have Bigfoot sightings, and they are they're well known, and the superior officers will tell people, we know they're out there, just don't talk about it. Kind of like the FAA told pilots, okay, we know there's UFOs. Don't bother with the paper. Don't bother with the paperwork. Yeah. Okay,
just brings more work for them.
Yeah. and he said, and the Ozark Howler has seconded this because of his involvement in the government, and he doesn't believe in the paranormal. The Howler does not believe, but he doesn't really believe in the government either. But their point is that, especially for something like Bigfoot. Like they said, one person probably knows everything there is to know. And then there's probably 15 people that each know a portion of it. Then if you got all 15 of those people together, they could piece together what the one person knows. But they purposely do not give all the information to everybody, so that, because he even in the military, he said the one thing, and I didn't know what you could ever make of the story, but and you guys have probably heard it about when Mount St. Helens erupted, and and there was reports that there were National Guardsmen that were with military personnel going and removing Bigfoot from different places that were badly burned and injured, and this guy said that is something they heard in the military, not from their superior, but it was something there. So I'm like, gosh, is that something that really happened?
Yeah.
We're in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Oregon. We're right in the middle of it, so it's but you hear that from farmers and ranchers, and if you find anything weird on your property, it's not going to be there for very long. They're going to come grab it. There's actually a a law that you can't, if there's anything dead on the side of the road, you can't like take it or move it or nothing. Like you got to leave it there and call Fish and Wildlife, and they come and deal with it.
Really?
Crazy. Yeah, because I lived in Texas for a while, and if there was like something that just got run over, they'd be like, we could probably eat that. I mean, they would like take it home and butcher it. You can't do that here. No way.
They do. They have a list here. The sheriff's department does of guys that'll go pick up deer, and get it. And if it's good, they'll butcher it. But that's great. So that just tells you that, that
they know
to go to that extent. And I don't understand if they know why nobody cared when they came out and said, "Hey, we've got off-world vehicles in our possession." Like nobody cared. Okay, I think everybody just assumed we have UFOs.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
We have aliens. We got UFOs. I think everybody kind of assumes that the government knows about Bigfoot. Okay,
who was it that was telling us that the government will never admit to anything or acknowledge anything that they can't control? So they can't control these UFOs. Yeah. So even if they know they're real, they're not going to acknowledge them and say, yeah, they're real. So it's probably the same thing with all of these creatures. Like they can't control it, so they can't come out and say what it is for sure anyway.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point, and I do know from talking to people in the Dogman world, which is kind of, it's weird that you can even say that there's a Dogman world, but that because there's some very famous cases, that are kind of documented, like the Land Between the Lakes case is kind of documented, and but it's kind of weird, like that the government is keeping an eye on some of these guys that do research, and they know it because the government. Now, this is what some of these guys are telling us, okay? And they have no I mean, I don't know why they would lie. There's, contrary to what everybody listening thinks, there's not a lot of money in Bigfoot.
There really is.
Okay. Okay. So, and really all there is to get face ridicule. You know what I'm saying? So, but these guys have, there was a guy who is big in the Dogman world, who's the guy who runs his website and his internet provider, told him, said, look, do you know who's getting on your Dogman website and looking at stuff? And he's like, well, no, how would I know that? And he goes, and they call them the ABC agencies. Every ABC agency you can think of is on here reading these stories. And he said he thought that, he was like, whatever, maybe it's somebody at a desk, like listen, doing paperwork or something, listen, checking stuff out. And he said he went to give a talk at a conference, and one of the people from one of those agencies came up and just introduced himself and said, look, I'm just going to be out in the open. We are monitoring what you're doing because we don't know what it is these people are seeing. He goes, so don't think that we are monitoring this because we know and we're trying to keep people, we don't know any more than what you know. We're trying to find stuff out, and just know that if, you're somewhere, we're not far behind, because they're like, oh gosh, that's kind of.
Well, they're probably not going to go to their superior and ask for a budget line. Can we have X amount of dollars to research Sasquatch or Dogman? They'd be like, yeah, no. So they're banking on all of you guys doing all this research.
Well, I think the money's already there.
Oh yeah.
I just don't think they know they know any more than what, because I'm not sure, like the dog man that the judge experienced. Okay. I think our conclusion is that it was tied to the Native American burial mounds, that it's a spiritual thing that you can experience in a physical form, if that makes sense. Like,
I was just going to ask, what do you think these things are? Do you think they're purely terrestrial, or do you think that there is some extra stuff in there?
Look, when it comes to Dogman, I do not want to think. I have a hard time believing that there's people that metamorphosize into a dog or a wolf or something. Okay. Mm-hmm. I also have I don't want to believe that those creatures are out there all the time. I want to think that they're a spiritual thing that maybe the Native Americans, because when you do the history of Anubis, okay, so Anubis was the god of the dead or the underworld or whatever. He was the guy that kind of helped, and so you got to think then that somehow that belief system migrated over here to the Native Americans, or maybe the Native Americans had it first and the Egyptians got it from it. Who knows? It's way before any of us really realized what was going on. And that maybe it appears in a physical form when it feels like it needs to say, hey, back off, or you need to see me or something. Because like the whole go for spirits and stuff, like sometimes, like you'll experience a physical thing when it comes to a spirit, whether they move something, they knock on something, or, I mean, I've seen a ghost that if I hadn't asked the person in the room with me, I thought it was a person standing there. Okay. Wow. That's how I experienced. I didn't experience as a mist or something, or Casper the Friendly Ghost. Yeah. I thought it was a person. And so how did I experience it that way when I know other people have experienced them other ways, where you could see through them. So that is the reason I think that type of creature is not just flesh and blood, but we can experience it in a flesh and blood. Now, what is that? That means nothing. That I said that means nothing. But that just means on the people that I've spoken to, my experience, a little bit of experience with the paranormal, and what the judge experienced, you kind of start cobbling together a theory, and that's all it is. And there's no way of testing that theory, because, I mean, if you're going out looking for Dogman, then you got good luck. Yeah. Tell me how it works.
Well, and works
out. Well, we lived in a haunted house years ago when my oldest, who's 19, he was 4-ish, and we moved into this house, and I'm pretty sure that there was an incubus or something like that in the house, the more research I've done on it now. But at the time, it was kind of the same thing where I saw something, my ex-husband saw something, my mom saw something, and it was like, then we all talked to each other and we were like, oh, I mean, we all experienced the same stuff, just a little bit differently. But it was really my kid that it was after. Like, he was full on seeing this thing and explaining it. And he's not like a creative type kid. He's not like an imagination type kid. And he's like explaining this thing, and I'm like, this is terrifying. Like, are you seriously seeing this? He's like the kind of kid that he barely even talked. Like, he still doesn't talk very much, but he barely talked.
He's got ghosts. Yeah, he's got ghosts.
In therapy, they'll reveal that experience when he was 4 really messed him up.
But that's it. It's people experience it in different, especially that in different ways.
Yeah. So let's, for sake of time, and I don't know how much more time you have, but I'm going to be gentle with it. I just am curious. What have you heard about Bigfoot, and what is your kind of theory, or you guys have come to when it comes to Bigfoot? Let's nail this down.
Okay, don't. Now I'm coming to you, and I'm assuming this is the trust tree, and you're not going to make fun of me for my theory.
Let's hear it.
Oh, that depends. Well, that's a vote of confidence.
There's just something from the research, from the reading, and talking to people. And when you get into the historical aspect of this, that there's something that just tells me that whatever Bigfoot comes from, like whatever that creature that we call Bigfoot or that species is, I just have a feeling they're connected to what we would consider the ancient, the first people of especially in North America. Okay, like the Native Americans, because the Native Americans, I mean, why would they made pictographs or whatever you want to call of everything they saw, which included buffalo, wolves, and then you got a Bigfoot type creature. Like, do you think they were just making it? That's what they saw, and there's stories about them, interacting with these people and even trading with these. They called them the people of the woods or whatever. And so if you go back and you kind of study history, and when America is getting founded, what did we do? We drove the Native Americans from their land, massacred them, just tried to destroy their culture. And what I think happened is I think that initially these were a native people, okay, a native civilization that the average guy on a horseback with a musket, they were defenseless against. What were you going to do? You can't, you couldn't defeat these people. Okay, this nation of whatever, and I think because there's this also, I think, a very spiritual side to them. It seems to be, and I think that's the Native American, that's the native part to them. So I think when we established the national parks, I think that was us saying, okay, here's our white flag. Here's where we're going to set aside for you guys. We're not going to mess with you guys. Okay, don't mess with us. This is our, and so of course that might have worked for a little while. And then what did we discover on almost all these parklands? Natural resources and a way to make money, whether it's through tourism or through resources. And so I think what has happened is it got to the point where they might have stayed in those places for a while, and then they just finally said, look, we're going to go to Eastern Ohio, and we're going to go to, wherever, and kind of just spread out. And I think that for some reason, that's what I think happened in at the early turn of the century, because it's just such an odd coincidence that Teddy Roosevelt was a part of a hunting party that supposedly came across one of these, and then Teddy Roosevelt is kind of the guy who said, "Hey, let's have a national park system."
Right.
Now that I don't know. I mean, but that to me is seems like it could be a reasonable explanation. But you got to remember, these things are all over the world.
Right.
I mean, they're all over the world. There's different things all over the world that people see that you could call Bigfoot or whatever they may be. So,
well, and I assume you've watched like the videos of like Patty and all those videos where they've tried to debunk it for years and years and years, and they can't. Like the way that the muscles are moving under the fur and all of that stuff. They're like, there's no way back in the 60s or whatever that they could have done that. I mean, they couldn't even really do it now without them being able to debunk it. So does that, in your opinion, does that lend any credence to any of this?
Well, to me, it looks like great evidence.
Yeah.
Okay. But I have really, I'm good friends with Stacy Brown. Stacy Brown, the skunk, I don't know if you guys know Stacy. He's crazy. He's great. But they just, they've got a podcast, and they just did an episode on the Patterson-Gimlin film and why they think it's fake. Oh. And why they think it's fake. And Stacy is somebody who has, he has some of the best thermal images of a skunk ape or Bigfoot in Florida. I mean, there's no questioning what. Oh yeah, it's amazing. But he is of the mindset. Now he also thinks the moon landing was fake too. So, and we've had him on and talked about that. But
this might be our kind of guy.
Oh gosh, you windy. Hey, you windy.
We get real Fringy over here.
I know. I've listened to some episodes. I know. And I listened to one about the banking system. I almost went and took all $12 I have out of the bank. I didn't want it to collapse. But I'm right there with you, and I know that because I do stuff in the movie business, and one of the best special effects guys lives not too far from us, and I'm going to put him on the spot and ask him if he has seen, because he's done werewolf costumes for some really big, and they're not cheap. Okay, even now, a top-notch werewolf creature costume, it's like $50,000. I mean, it's a lot of money. If you want to do a horror movie, and I'm going to ask him, and I'm going to see what he thinks, because I've never asked him about this, and see what he thinks, and I will let you know what he thinks, because he to me would be an expert on these creature suits, right. And what, all you had to do is go look at Planet of the Apes. Okay? Yeah. How great was that? So, and the underlying thing is Roger Patterson was a known shyster, for lack of a better. Right. He was a nice way to, he's kind of a con man. Bob Gimlin, though, is not.
Right.
Anybody that has met Bob Gimlin would be hard pressed to say he was in on faking something. And, so there you go. I mean,
right. And same thing with the Sierra sounds. I've heard some people say, nope, it's other types of animals and they sound like this. And then other people that have said, there's nothing that sounds like that we know of. And so who knows?
Have you ever heard Ron Moorhead talk?
Yes.
He's one of the most intelligent. I mean, anybody that writes a book about physics and Bigfoot, like right. I can't even spell physics.
Is it a P?
Okay? But
where's the Y?
Sounds more like an F.
Start with an F. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I hear those, and what's funny is you hear people tell stories and describe what they've heard, and they've never heard the Sierra sounds. And then you play the Sierra sounds for. There's a guy from Australia that I had on here recently, and he played me this howl that he recorded, and I played for him the infamous Ohio howl that Matt Moneymaker. He had never heard it, and he goes, "Oh my God, that sounds the same thing." Okay, well,
yeah.
How does that happen? Because one of them has dogs bark, and it's not like he took it and because one of them has dogs barking. I think it's the Ohio howl has dogs barking. His does not, so it's not like he has the same one and just gave it to me instead.
Right.
So,
well, that's what we have to remember. Is this stuff is globally. This isn't just like a certain, Now that people are connecting through podcasts and through other stuff, it's like this stuff is happening everywhere. So, unless everybody had a big meeting and they were like, "Hey, this is what Sasquatch sounds like," I tend to believe them.
Yeah, and believe me, there's no the people, the Bigfoot world.
Yeah,
they ain't getting together on anything. They're not getting together on anything. They're not happening. That's also a thing is nobody wants to agree because they all want to be right.
Right.
And that's the biggest mistake is everybody wanting to be right rather than just to be, genuine and come at it with, we want to discover, and make this stuff. It's not going to be mainstream, but make it so that the people that are experiencing it feel like they're not an oddity or they're not,
I think that's
crazy.
important. I'm so glad that you guys are doing it that way because they're just, people just need to be heard, as we said before. And, don't discount somebody's personal life experiences. I mean, you guys could have a debate about a belief system, hopefully in a controlled and nice way. But when it comes to a person's personal belief system, that's like me coming to you and being like, oh, the other day I got a sandwich and you're all, nope, never happened. And I'm just like, what? No, dude, I did. I got the sandwich. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this is
well, it wasn't any good because you didn't get it from my plate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I can verify it was probably Taco Bell, not a sandwich.
Dang,
busted.
All right, dude. Well, hey, man, we had a blast, and we're so thankful that you were able to take the time. We are digging your podcast, and we're so thankful you guys are doing it. And we just wanted to put you guys out there, talk to you guys a little bit about your experiences and what you guys have been doing. And we just hope that you continue to do it and continue to get that word out. And we're going to continue to do what we're doing, and hopefully we'll get back together and talk about this stuff again another time.
Oh, definitely. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I definitely think we got to have you guys on. I need to hear more about this haunted house that you guys have lived in. And I'm super curious. You mentioned, I think somebody sent in a question, and they wanted you guys to do kind of a dive into the books that didn't make it into the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that would be an interesting just topic for discussion.
Yep.
So,
and they're very controversial. Some people get real upset when you mention them, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. It'd be worth talking about.
And you know what? I would love to be educated on what what those are and what those are all about and what they. I mean, I know what I know, but I would like to, I'd like to be taught something and learn something. So, I'm going to extend the invitation. But when you guys are ready to come on and talk about that, I want to have you guys on, and I want to hear about your ghost stories and hear about that.
We look forward to it.
Definitely.
For sure.
All right, Shane. It's been a blast, man, and we'll let you get going. So thanks for being on, and we love you out there to the Fringy family, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye, Shane. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.